I grew up in rough country. John Steinbeck commented on our sun-rotted mountains, and Martha Summer Hayes wrote in her journal when she passed through in 1874 that no civilized people would ever live here. So far, she's been right. In the old days, Mojave County was the home of fierce Indian tribes, ne'er-do-well renegades, wild outlaws, and crazy cowboys. In 1912, my grandfather, Robert Guest, worked for legendary cow boss Tap Duncan, who owned the Diamond Bar, and through that connection, my mother's side of the family claims shirt-tail relations to three notorious Old West bad men: Bigfoot Wallace, John Wesley Hardin, and Black Jack Ketchum. Of course, my mother hated it when I used to brag about being related to outlaws. What she heard was, we're related to Jack the Ripper, the Boston Strangler, and Charlie Manson. It's been said that a typical Westerner will punch you in the mouth if you call his daddy a crook, but he'll brag a little when he tells how his granddad was an outlaw. I think I resemble that remark. Even in the late 1950s, Mojave County was very isolated. No TV signal, minimum radio choices, no big city sophistication. A siren would go off at 10 p.m. telling kids they had better go home and be off the streets. Yes, we lived a long way from anything. But in spite of our isolation, there was one thin lifeline that connected us to the outside world.
Trying to boogie-woogie down Route 66. Well, if you ever plan to motor west, take my way, that's the highway, that is the best. Get your kicks out on Route 66. Well, it winds from Chicago to LA, more than 2,000 miles along the way. Get your kicks out on Route 66. Winds through St. Louis, Joplin, Missouri, Oklahoma City, it sure looks pretty. You should see Amarillo, Gallup, New Mexico, Flagstaff, Arizona, darling, don't forget Winona, Kingman, Barstow, San Bernardino. Once you get hip, it's kind of tip. When you take that California trip, get your kicks on Route 66. Let it roll. St. Louis, Joplin, Missouri, Oklahoma City, it sure looks pretty. You should see Amarillo, Gallup, New Mexico, Flagstaff, Arizona, darling, don't forget Winona, Kingman, Barstow, San Bernardino. Once you get hip to the time to tip, when you take the California trip, get your kicks out on Route 66. Or you can cop a few licks driving down 66.
In 1950, the United States was flush with cash and technology, but nobody was buying. We just came out of a war. Ike said, buy. The American people said, buy what? Well, Madison Avenue had an answer for that.
See the USA in your Chevrolet. America is asking you to call. Drive your Chevrolet through the USA. America's the greatest land of all.
For the better part of 2 decades, my family took a road trip every August to the family farm in Thompson, Iowa. Now, we would leave Kingman really early. In fact, my mom would pack the night before. And in the morning at 4 a.m., we were up and ready to roll, leaving before light. And I don't think we left Kingman, we escaped. And there's nothing more magnificent than to be on the road in those early twilight hours. We usually drive about an hour and a half. We'd end up in Sligman, invariably at the Copper Cart in Sligman, Arizona. We'd go in to have breakfast. My father would order the exact same thing: 2 eggs over easy, bacon, toast, coffee, black, and orange juice. And then we'd hit the road again, and when we got into eastern Arizona, we started to see all the fantastic things. World's largest buffalo. And I remember standing on the back hump of that transmission, and I started poking my dad. Hey, Dad, can we stop? We got into New Mexico, it got worse. Live Indians, as I guess opposed to the other kind. But I would say, Dad, come on, we stop. Got into eastern New Mexico, it got even worse. Bully the Kid's grave. I finally realized he was only going to stop for maybe gas, food, oil, maybe open wounds. So we got to Iowa, where we ate 5 times a day and talked about crops. And by the way, we were eastbound on Route 66, and everybody we met westbound was smiling and laughing. They had inner tubes on the roof. They were on their way to the beach in Disneyland. We were Norwegians on the way to the public farm. We're sitting there like this. I asked my dad, you gotta give me one place to stop at on the way back. He said, well, we will, kid, if we got time. Well, I knew what that meant. He wasn't gonna stop. He was gonna drive all the way back to Kingman without stopping. But I hatched a devious plan. I'd picked out the place. It was 43 miles east of Albuquerque, New Mexico, south side of the road, and it was called the Longhorn Museum. I saw it as we blasted past there on the way to Iowa, and it said over 1,000 items on the Old West. And so, at Santa Rosa, New Mexico, I looked on a map. We came out of the Club Cafe, got back in the car. My dad was driving with his hands in the 10 and 2 position. And every father has a weak spot that runs from the ear down to his shoulder. And I started poking that. Come on, Dad, you promise. Come on, you promise, you promise. And he's trying to shake me off as he's passing 10 trucks at a time. But I just would not let up, and I kept going. Come on, Dad, you promised. He finally swung that 1957 Ford into that parking lot, and he said, kid, you got 15 minutes. Well, those were the most precious 15 minutes of my life. Inside were all kinds of Old West things, chaps, hats, Bronco steers, all kinds of stuff. And I finally saw it. It was an authentic photo of Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid. I said, how much for that? He said, $25. I bought it. Got back in the car. Now my dad had to get back out on Route 66 and pass all the trucks that got by us while we were in the museum. I'm studying this authentic photo of Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid. My mom's worried about me. We blast through Grants, Cubero, we go through Flagstaff, don't forget Winona, and I'm studying this authentic photo. We get home, I put it up in my bedroom where I can see it every day before I go to school, and I'm gonna get a hat like that and boots like that someday. I made a vow. Well, about 2 weeks later, we went down to Desert Drug so my mom could get a prescription filled. I went up to the front of the store, bought my favorite magazine, True West, and on page 32, I discovered the photograph I bought for $25 at the Longhorn Museum was a fake! I'm so mad now that I spent the rest of my youth trying to find out what did these outlaws really do, and that's how I ended up owning True West magazine. This is a gas station in Truxton, Arizona. It used to be a Whiting Brothers back in the day, and gas was 19.9. And believe it or not, in those days, 4 guys waited on every car. Service with a smile indeed. The first guy came out and said, can I fill it with flight fuel? The second guy washed all the windows all the way around. The third guy checked all the tires, including the spare. And the fourth guy went under the hood and cut all the fan belts.
I was the 5th guy. Wearing my Little League cap, I'd come out and say, got any jugs you'd like iced? This was before air conditioning in cars, so everyone had a jug that needed iced. I worked for tips, and I found out that Texans tipped the best and teachers tipped the worst. I'd get about $25 on each job. I saved my tips, and at the end of the summer, I sent off for a book I saw advertised in True West magazine. It was called The Biographical Album of Western Gunfighters by Ed Bartholomew. Well, my friends were buying bikes, I was buying a book. You know what? I never regretted it. When tourists stopped in Kingman, we invariably got two questions. The first was, do you have gold in your gas? This was a reference to our sky-high price of $35.9 for regular and $39.9 for ethyl. The other line was, how far is it to California? 62 miles, sir. Thank God. I can't wait to get out of this God-forsaken desert. But we didn't have the heart to tell them that it was 62 miles to Needles, California on the Colorado River and one of the hottest spots in the nation. I would always just smile and say, I hope you get a chance to linger there, sir. I come from a long line of hot rodders and gearheads. In 1915, my grandfather, Carl Bell, terrorized the back roads of Winnebago County, Iowa on his belt drive Harley. His son, Alan P., also had a need for speed, which prompted many a neighbor in the outskirts of Thompson to remark, there goes that damn Bell kid. My dad had cars on the brain. Here he is with his foot on the running board of his 1937 Ford Deluxe two-door sedan. The powertrain has a flatty V8 that can crank out an honest 85 horsepower, and in the 1930s, these Fords were the favorite of many a bank robber. Check out those factory dog dish hubcaps covering the wide give wheels. But it wasn't just my father who was crazy about cars in Mojave County.
As the 60s gave way to the 70s on Route 66, it seemed like the cars got bigger, badder, hotter, and faster. This is a 396 Nova, big block Chevy right here, followed by a couple of small blocks, but they all have one thing in common. They are fast, mean mothers. Hey, I'm talking to Randy Lee here. Tell me about your rat rod.
Oh, it's a great little car. It's a 70 Nova. It's built to be driven. We have a lot of fun with it. It's got some great highway gears. We can get around the state without burning a lot of gas, which is really good for a big block Chevy. So.
Yeah, now a big block Chevy, how fast have you had it?
Well, it's, I'm not going to go and divulge a lot of secrets, but, we've probably been about 100 once or twice.
Okay.
But that's as fast as I'm willing to go.
What does that feel like?
So, with an older car and an old worn out front end, it can get interesting.
As my good friend Jim Hinckley puts it, Route 66 is America's biggest sideshow. And it was true in the 1950s, it's true today. When I was just a little kid standing on the transmission hump of my old man's 1957 Ford, and we were blasting down Route 66, I would want to stop at every single place. World's largest buffalo. The sign took up an entire plateau, and I wanted to stop, and of course my dad never would. We got into New Mexico, there were just all kinds of crazy stuff. Two-headed calves, all kinds of just bizarre stuff. But one of the coolest places is where I'm at right now, and that was Dinosaur Caverns. Dinosaur Caverns purported to be a place where you could go actually see the dinosaurs, and they had tracks there, and my eyes were big as saucers. We went down inside an elevator, and they showed us where the pterodactyls were clawing on the wall. That's where those scrapings are. Well, then about a year later, there was an anthropologist, and he came through and he said, there were no dinosaurs here. And so they changed it to this. They changed it to Grand Canyon Caverns. But the people are still showing up, aren't they? Because everyone loves a sideshow.
With their marriage in 1945, my mom and dad began a long-running ping pong game between northern Iowa and Mojave County. My father couldn't seem to make up his mind which place he wanted to be. He worked as a mechanic in Albert Lea, Minnesota, and Thompson, Iowa, and we moved to Kingman in the summer of 1946, and I was along for the ride.
My father, Alan P. Bell, had about a dozen stations in his career, but his very first one was right here in Peach Springs, Arizona on the Wallapai Reservation. It was a mobile gas station, and it was open 24/7. In fact, my mother had to man the pumps when my dad took a nap. This place was hopping then, and Route 66 was just starting to take off. In fact, there were 3 legends on the road at that time on this road in 1947. One was a guy named Bobby Troop. He was westbound, and he had a song title, 66, get your kicks on 66. Second guy, Jack Kerouac, hitchhiking out here in West. That later became On the Road. And the third guy, Andreas Finnegar, who took the most famous photo in the West. This is the old Elks Hall in downtown Kingman, and I've got to tell you, this room has a lot of history with me. I was in a band called the Exits, and our very first job was on this stage right here. Charlie Waters, Wendell Havatone, Terry Mitchell, Wayne Rutschman, and we were the Exits. And we called ourselves the Exits because we figured that's where they'd go, the audience, when they heard us. Anyway, we played all over Mojave County for many, many years. We all went our separate ways. And in 2006, we got word that Wendell Havatone, our lead guitar player, had passed away of a heart attack in Alaska. And we decided to have one more gig in his honor at the place where it all started, right here at the Elks. I called my good friend Scott Dutton, who owns the place now. He said, no problem, come on up, everything's gonna be fine. I was playing a drum set right on this spot on March 22nd, 2008, not that I'm counting, and in the middle of the drum solo, I went over and played that wall. That wasn't enough, people were laughing. I went over here, played my behind, then gaitered on the floor and walked back here and proceeded to have a heart attack. I was taken to the hospital and they miraculously saved my life. This room, like I said, has a lot of history for me.
The end came quick. By 1974, the mighty road we grew up on was on the ropes. It was as if a giant hose clamp had been placed at each end of town, cutting off the oxygen to everything in between. The mighty beasts that roam Route 66 are now mostly ruins and housed in junkyards and vacant fields. My father's mobile oil gas station in Peach Springs was a shell of its former self in 1991, and since then it has been knocked down and even the foundation is hard to find. For myself, I had some luck on Route 66. With my father's estate, I bought True West magazine, and after buying that fake photo of Billy the Kid when I was just a kid, I actually got to hold the only known photograph of the kid, and it later sold for $2.3 million. This is the only known photograph in existence. My father and I got to do the Route 66 fun run for the last 10 years of his life, driving the 1949 Ford that had been in the family since it was bought new at Senseth Motors in Forest City, Iowa. My own kids, Dina and Tommy, got to come along on those runs and see what their grandpa was all about.
One of the joys of attending the Route 66 fun run is seeing this long parade of souped up, chopped and channel board and stroke rat-rotted Detroit muscle. Take a gander at some of these bitchin' cars.
Well, I'll be slowing for the hairpins and blasting down the straightaways. I'm getting looks from the girls, they love my 57 Chevrolet. You hear those glass packs roaring and it's getting loud. You see those big slicks spinning into giant white clouds. We're all cruising tonight, cruising with the 66 Kid. Well, along comes Billy Locust, the king of the Kingman quarter mile. Those Boulder City bad boys just wish that they had his style. They rev their Hemis and they try to look mean, but everybody knows that Billy is the king of this scene. They're lining up to race, cruising with the 66 Kid.
Father passed in 1998. He had lived the better part of 6 decades on the Mother Road, working in numerous gas stations and ending his career at Ford Proving Grounds, where he drove the old and new alignments of Route 66 5 days a week and for the better part of 20 years. On his gravestone are 3 words: he loved cars. And so by all rights, Alan P. Bell is the 66 Kid.